Constance Whitmore gave me 30 days to tear down my grandfather's bridge. 3 days later, she came back with power tools and men in reflective vests cutting through the wood in the dark while I stood there helpless watching my only way out collapse into Merrick Creek. They thought they'd won. They had no idea that the bridge was just half of what connected their world to mine. That morning started like any other. Coffee sunlight across the old counter, the quiet hum of a house that had stood for 70 years. My grandfather built this place, built that bridge back when this valley was farmland and dirt roads. Pine Valley Estates didn't exist back then. Now it's a gated community with manicured lawns, private patrols, and a board that thinks they own the sky. I first saw Constance's black SUV when it rolled up to my gate. 3 of them got out Constance in her heels, 2 board members with clipboards. They didn't even knock. She taped something to my gate, turned to look at my house, and gave this half-smile like she already knew how this would end. Then she drove away. The wind pulled at the paper she left behind. A notice. Unauthorized structure, identified on shared easement. Remove it in 30 days, or the HOA would remove it for me. I laughed the first time I read it. Shared easement. That bridge was on my property, completely built in 1954, before Pine Valley was even platted. My family let people use it as a courtesy. Goodwill. That's what my grandfather called it. He believed in neighborly decency and helping others. Turns out, goodwill doesn't show up in HOA bylaws. I pulled out the metal file box he gave me when I was 18. Inside were deeds, survey maps, even a black and white photo of him standing on that bridge in 1955, one hand on the railing. I laid everything out on the kitchen table and traced the lines on the old survey map. The bridge sat fully within Merrick property. His handwriting in the margin read, "Easement Agreement Verbal Goodwill Only." That should have been the end of it. But Constance Whitmore doesn't believe in endings-only control. I called my lawyer Iris. She sounded sharper than her morning coffee. "They can't do that, Silas," she said. "Don't respond yet. Bring me the documents this afternoon." I agreed, but something inside me didn't settle. I looked out the window toward Pine Valley. Their street lamps flickered again. They'd been doing that for weeks, minor power fluctuations. I knew exactly where the electricity came from. See, my grandfather didn't just build a bridge. He built a substation. Merrick Substation, quarter-mile down the creek, feeds power directly to Pine Valley under a 50-year supply contract he signed in 1998. I'd been maintaining it since he passed. Their entire community runs because my family kept that infrastructure alive. Funny thing about power, it's invisible until someone forgets where it comes from. 3 nights later, around 10 p.m., I was reading when I heard the sound. A saw. High-pitched mechanical wrong. I went outside. The air smelled like rain and gasoline. Through the trees I saw floodlights blazing white against the night and sparks flying. I ran. 3 men were standing on the bridge. One with a circular saw, another prying planks up with a crowbar, and on the far side Constance's arms folded calm as a queen, watching peasants dig their own graves. "Stop," I shouted. "That's private property." The man with the saw paused. Constance smiled. "Mr. Merrick, you were notified. This bridge is a safety hazard. We're removing it for the good of the community." "You're trespassing," I said, my voice shaking with fury. She pulled a folded paper from her jacket. "We have documentation to proceed. You can challenge it later." She turned to her crew. "Continue." The saw screamed back to life. I called 911. The dispatcher asked if anyone was in danger. "Yes," I said, "my bridge is being destroyed." But when the officer arrived 20 minutes later, all I got was a tired sigh and a clipboard. "Civil matter," he said. "Take it up with the county." By the time they left, the bridge was gone 10 feet of emptiness between me and the road. The men packed up. Constance climbed into her SUV and drove off without a word. The silence afterward was deafening. I stood at the edge staring down at the black water. That bridge had been more than wood. It was memory family continuity. And now I was stranded both literally and legally. For a moment I almost gave up. Thought about selling the land, letting them win. Maybe I was the stubborn one. Maybe holding on to old things wasn't worth it anymore. But then I saw the metal plaque they hadn't noticed half torn still bolted to the last intact post. It read, Merrick Family Estate, 1954. The letters my grandfather carved himself. I ran my thumb over the cool metal and felt something inside me lock into place. If they wanted war, they'd get it, but I'd fight it on paper, not with power tools. Next morning, I met Iris. Her office smelled like old law books and rain. She spread my evidence across the desk, survey maps, photos, the deed. They have no easement, she said. No authority. This is open and shut. Then she leaned back, tapping her pen. But you know what's even better? I looked up. What? You own their power. I opened the folder with the substation contract. 50 pages signed by my grandfather and the original developer. On page 43, highlighted in yellow marker, either party may terminate this agreement with 90 days written notice in the event of material breach including trespassing or property damage. Iris smiled slowly. They breached. You can legally cut them off. I hesitated. There are families there, kids, people on medical devices. Then give them a choice, she said. Repair the bridge, pay damages, apologize or lose their lights. We spent hours drafting the notice of breach. 8 pages, single-spaced, every clause airtight. I walked it to the county office myself, mailed certified copies to every HOA board member, including Constance. By evening, she called. You can't do this, she hissed. You'll be sued into oblivion. Then I guess I'll see you in court, I said, and hung up. The following week, headlines popped up online. Local man threatens HOA with power cut after bridge destroyed. The comments were chaos. Half the county called me a hero, the other half called me a monster. I didn't care. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. When the court hearing came, Pine Valley showed up with a corporate attorney and a stack of dramatics. He called me vindictive unstable, said I was holding families hostage. I just sat there while Iris dismantled him piece by piece. She showed the photos of the bridge, the deed lines, the clause on page 43. The judge leaned back, sighed, and finally said, the HOA's injunction is denied, and is. We won that round, but it didn't feel like victory. The judge urged me to consider mediation. Mr. Merrick, he said, you have the legal right to terminate the contract, but think of the innocent residents. I nodded, but inside I thought innocent people elected that woman. They let her rule unchecked. A week later, Pine Valley called an emergency town meeting. I wasn't invited, but I went anyway. The clubhouse was packed, angry voices echoing, people demanding answers. Constance sat at the front table, chin high, makeup perfect, like she could still control the narrative. One woman stood up and shouted, You destroyed his bridge without a permit, didn't you? Constance's smile cracked. The bridge was unsafe, she began. But another voice cut in, a retired army man from their board. I voted against it, he said. She overstepped. She lied to us. The room erupted. Someone yelled, We need a vote of no confidence. Others shouted for her resignation. The lawyer tried to calm them down, waving his hands, but it was useless. I stepped forward from the back, and suddenly the noise stopped. I'm Silas Merrick, I said. I came here to listen. I built nothing in this valley except what my grandfather left me, a bridge, a substation, and a sense of decency. That bridge stood 70 years without a single accident. You didn't destroy it for safety. You destroyed it because you thought you could. Constance glared at me. I kept going. I gave your board every chance to make this right. You refused. I'm not your enemy. I'm just the one who finally said no. An older woman near the front asked quietly, What do we do now? Vote, I said. Replace your leadership. Fix what they broke. That's all I ever wanted. I turned and walked out. Behind me, chaos broke loose again, voices, shouting, arguments, flaring. By the next morning, the county paper ran the headline, HOA President Under Fire After Bridge Scandal. 2 weeks later, Constance Whitmore resigned. Turns out she'd been using HOA funds for personal retreats. They always think they're untouchable until sunlight hits the books. The new board called me soon after. They agreed to rebuild the bridge at HOA expense pay for damages and sign a permanent acknowledgement that the land belonged to me. They even added a plaque, Merrick Bridge, private property. community access, granted with gratitude. When construction finished, I stood at the edge of Merrick Creek again. Fresh timber, reinforced supports, the same hum of water below, the same wind through the trees, but everything felt different, calmer, fairer. I walked to the substation one last time that week. The equipment hummed steady as always. On the cornerstone, the old words carved by my grandfather still read, "Power serves, it does not rule." For years, I thought that meant humility. Now I know it also means boundaries. They tried to take what wasn't theirs, and I reminded them that service only exists where respect does. Sometimes you don't have to cut the power to teach people who really holds it.